different readers provides an excuse to ignore the parochial limits of our own aesthetic preferences. Of course, we can never completely step outside the ideologically determined values and literary conventions that ground our interpretations, but if we at least remain attentive to questions about how and why Genji Monogatari has achieved canonical status, then through such critical reflection we can open ourselves more fully to the challenges and pleasures presented by Murasaki Shikibu's art. Readings and receptions of Genji Monogatari in Japan. To get a sense of the importance of reading with a critically open attitude, with a willingness to negotiate between the cultural assumptions that shape the text and those that shape our expectations of it, we need to consider briefly how previous generations have approached the narrative. Written in the vernacular of court society, Murasaki Shikibu's vivid depiction of the world inhabited by her fictional hero, the radiant Prince Genji, drew directly upon the realities of the lives of the aristocracy, providing the men and women who first read her tale with the shock of the familiar. The imperial palace and the bureaucratic institutions that supported it constituted a realm inhabited by the most privileged of an elite class, one that was aloof and isolated, disdainful of the lower orders, and extraordinarily self-absorbed. Genji Monogatari satirizes the foibles and hypocrisies of the nobility, especially as these are exposed in the course of relationships between men and women, while at the same time reinforcing or affirming fundamental aesthetic, moral, and religious values in a way that was flattering to the self-regard of court society. It is no wonder, then, that the earliest portions of the narrative found an avid readership among the author's peers, and that the initial reception of those first chapters likely paved the way for the author to enter court service in the salon of Empress Shoshi, where she probably completed the bulk of her masterwork. Within a decade of its composition, Genji Monogatari began to circulate more widely outside the confines of the imperial court, and over the course of the following century, emaki versions, scrolls containing both text and illustrations, were produced. However, because no manuscripts from the early 11th century have survived, the earliest surviving fragments of emaki date from the 12th century, it is impossible to say with any certainty to what extent copies were available at the court. Judging from comments found in Sarashina Nikki, a journal or diary written in the mid-11th century by a woman known to us as the daughter of Sugawara no Takasue, it was difficult to obtain the complete text if you were outside the court. Few copies were readily available, and individual chapters often circulated separately. Thus, even though the readership of Genji Monogatari was limited during the early part of the 11th century, it is clear from the account presented in Sarashina Nikki that the reputation of the work quickly spread beyond the confines of the elite court nobility who worked in and around the imperial palace. Taking full advantage of stylistic techniques that had been developing for well over a century in Japanese prose, not just fiction, but diaries, chronicles, and journals as well, Murasaki Shikibu crafted a narrative voice that was forcefully persuasive and often knowingly ironic. She also conjured through her writing the illusion of an internal reality or subjectivity within her characters. In turn, these rhetorical achievements had broader cultural implications. The articulation of a well-defined aesthetic sensibility in Genji Monogatari through the subjectivity of characters who are consciously, often painfully, torn between the fleeting appeal of material, secular culture, and a religiously motivated desire to escape worldly attachments, revealed the contradictory nature of the dominant values at the court in mid-Heian Japan. Over time, this conflicted aesthetic sensibility proved so appealing that it became a central element in what has long been regarded as a distinctive Japanese ethos. Although the economic and political power of the court gradually contracted over the course of the 11th and 12th centuries, the powerful military